And a counselor can provide that safety by being empathetic, by being genuine. How will that counselor be genuine? If the counselor is self-aware. It's very important. All these things are interrelated, and as we would proceed, I would show you how they are interconnected. If a counselor is self-aware, then there won't be any contradiction between the inner self and the outer self of that counselor, and the counselor won't have to fake anything, and that is how the counselor can be genuine. Hello everyone, and welcome to the course of counseling. So I am Samarpita, and I'm currently in my final year of graduation, and I'm currently pursuing a course in counseling by Miss Saloni Priya, and I'm learning so much in that. So I decided that I will encapsulate all those information, all those learnings, and make a playlist for free on YouTube so that I can revise those concepts properly and I can share that knowledge with all of you. So who should be doing this course or watching these videos? If you are a student, if you are a teacher, if you are any professional, you can watch this course. But especially if you are a student pursuing psychology, or if you are a teacher of any subject, this is very crucial for you. Because, you see so many cases today, children, school students taking their own lives, going into depression. There are so many things that are happening around us, especially in this generation, because of so much stress, because of the presence of social media, of internet. Teachers should be equipped to help the students and help them manage their emotions, and that is an important skill. So that's what we are going to do today. This is the first lecture today, and we'll be talking about counseling, what it is not, and just an overview to introduction to counseling. So these are the contents. What is counseling? What is barefoot counseling? What are the roles? What do the roles mean? Coaching, teaching, mentoring, counseling. Then what is behavior modification? Fundamental skills in counseling. Counseling in educational settings. Key reflective examples. Now, what is counseling? I want you to take a moment and think about what comes to your mind when you think about counseling. You might think about solving problems. You might think about guidance or help, or there are a lot of things that come to your mind, and a lot of those are myths, let me tell you. We would bust those myths in a proper class. There will be a class where we will discuss the myths and facts related to counseling, but that will come later. Today, let's see the ACA definition. ACA means American Counseling Association. In 1997, they gave this definition. Counseling is the application of mental health, psychological or human development principles through cognitive means related to our thoughts, affective, that is related to emotions, behavior, that is related to our actions, or systemic interventions and strategies that address wellness, personal growth, career development, as well as pathology. Now, in earlier days, counseling, psychology was seen from a pathological viewpoint or a clinical viewpoint, that there is some disorder with you, we need to diagnose that and we need to treat it. But on the other end of the spectrum, not exactly the other end, but from a different perspective, positive psychology came up, or humanistic existential psychology came up, discussing that how you can look at a situation from a different perspective, how you can change your thoughts, how you can change the way you look at a situation and change your actions according to it. We would see all of that in cognitive behavioral therapy and all the other things that we'll be learning. So the key reframings are: counseling is not giving advice. Okay, this is the first myth that we are going to bust. A counselor does not give advice. A counselor helps a person understand their own life situation so that they gain the strength to handle it themselves. We equip the client or the person or the patient, as you term, to handle the situation themselves. We make them understand the situation, and if they understand something, they are going to look at it from different perspectives and they are going to handle it themselves. Counseling is giving them hope and optimism and strength. Define counseling without the word problem. Now, don't use the word problem, because when you use the word problem, you look at a situation from a negative perspective, and that blocks your road, that blocks your way. You become a barrier yourself when you use the word problem. You have already defined that it's a problem and it needs to be solved. But compared to that, there's one more person who looks at the positive things and who looks at it as a life situation and then comes up with solutions how to deal with it. Isn't that a better way? Now, when we do this, we remove the stigma and reorient the purpose. Counseling is the application of psychology at its best. Yes, it is. It is evolving from a profession into a fundamental human skill and across many roles and settings. Let us look at this example. There is a student who has come for counseling. Now, he has a lot of problems with his father. Now, initially the counseling was, rage baiting or bashing out his father and taking out all the emotions and saying, I don't like my papa and he does this, he does that. A counselor will listen to all of it and provide him the safe space to talk about it without any hesitation. That is very important. But the counselor will also try to shift the perspective. The counselor might say that let us not look at your father as a father. Let us look at him as a person, as a middle-aged man who is doing a 9-to-5 job, who comes back at home tired and then has to spend some time with his family and look after all the other responsibilities. Now, what this thing has done, it has powerfully shifted the perspective. The session transforms from blame into dealing with the student's own challenges. When you shift your perspective, you don't negate or you don't discard the problems. You gain more insight and come up with the solutions to handle the challenge. Counseling is giving hope and optimism. Now, I want you to notice the miracles around you. This is a very powerful exercise. And at the end of the lecture today, I would give you some examples of real life miracles that have happened. Not with me, with people who have shared those with me. Now, what is barefoot counseling? Counseling is very important from a teacher's perspective, and I told you why. So, barefoot counselor does not necessarily hold a formal psychology degree, but is equipped with foundational skills to spread awareness, prevent problems, and support others, especially in community or school settings. Now, what this approach covers is skill-based community approach that is practical and not just theoretical, understanding of human behavior and emotional well-being, building life skills or tools that help navigate life, micro skills of counseling and self-awareness. When you are self-aware, then only you can be a counselor. A counselor cannot be not having self-awareness and then counseling others, helping. You cannot help others if you cannot help yourself. Dealing with common adolescent issues, preventing major concerns through early intervention, precaution and prevention, didactic activities, practical training, reflective exercises, and self-assessment tools. Like I told you, that notice the miracles around you and maintain a notebook for that. That is the first assessment I'm giving you. Learning approach, experiential over rote. Now, this is the first exercise I told you. This is an example of how you can practice self-awareness. Counseling is now seen as a fundamental skill used across professions. I told you, if you are in a hospital setup, you need a counselor. If you are in an educational setup in a school or a college, you need a counselor, and now it has become mandatory. If you are in defense, you need a counselor. In SSB board, there is always a counselor there, the psychologist. In the army also, you need a counselor for post-traumatic stress disorder and other types of problems. You need a counselor everywhere. In corporate, you need a counselor. Now, let us discuss the different roles: coaching, teaching, mentoring, and counseling. I don't want you to look at these roles as different from each other. They are interrelated. Coaching will have teaching, teaching will have coaching. Okay, but I'm going to tell you about what they focus on mainly. Coaching means teaching a specific skill, okay, or transferring a specific skill. Now, you hear the word coaching in terms of entrance exams, right? Like for NEET, for IIT, for UPSC, government exams, you have coaching. Now, what are they doing? They are teaching a specific subject in a specific way. That is transferring a skill. There you practice and you get feedback. That is coaching. Now, teaching is concept transfer, instruction and example. A teacher teaches a concept by giving some instructions and giving some examples for that, illustrations. Now, what is mentoring? Now, understand mentoring from the perspective of a guru, okay? Like in earlier times, there used to be pathshalas, gurus, where Shishya used to go to the guru and stay there, give guru dakshina, and the guru used to handhold and give senior guidance and teach so many things about life, about skills, everything to that Shishya. Now, that is mentoring. Counseling is based on the principles of mentoring. Counseling is looking at life situations, listening, reframing, and empowering the person. These roles increasingly overlap and integrate in educational and professional settings. Teachers play all the three roles, all the different roles simultaneously: teaching, guiding, steering, training, disciplining, counseling, you name it, and a teacher has to do it, right? The potter metaphor. Okay, mentoring is like, when a potter molds the pot with his hands into different shapes. That is what mentoring is. You provide guidance to mold a person into a specific way. Like a lawyer who practices under a senior, counseling is learned similarly experientially. A lawyer, when he becomes a lawyer and completes his degree, after that he has to practice under a senior lawyer. So similarly, even a doctor has to practice being attached to a hospital setting or under a senior doctor. Not under, but being attached to a senior doctor. Similarly, a counselor also practices under a senior counselor, and that is how he or she learns counseling. Behavior modification. I want you to spend a moment and think about behavior, and can behavior be changed? Is behavior something genetic, or can it be changed with our experiences or with guidance? See, behavior can be genetic when you look at it from a clinical or pathological viewpoint. You might say that a person behaves in a certain way because his mother behaves in this way. That is true, but it's not necessarily genetic. The child has spent his whole life with his mother, since he was born. He has seen his mother behave in a certain way, and that is how the child has picked up those traits, and that is why it seems to be genetic. But behavior in general is not genetic, it is environmental, and it comes with experience. And behavior can be changed with guidance. It can definitely be changed, and that is what counseling is for. When the change in behavior is positive, in a proper direction, that is, we term it as growth. It is intentional. You cannot force someone to change. Someone can choose to change, okay? And in counseling, you help them choose to change. Learn the systematic process. In counseling, we learn the systematic process to help people choose to change. Change is never forced. We widen the understanding of human behavior, the good and bad. As you become a good counselor, you would see that no situation, nothing is completely right or completely wrong. It depends on the context, it depends on the person, it depends on the experiences of that person, from their perspective, what they are thinking, what they are looking. So a counselor can never judge, okay, and never term something as bad or draw conclusions. We need to challenge our own thinking, and we would be doing that. Behavior is shaped by environment and experience, not genetics. Different value systems like home versus school can lead to a very different response to the same situation. Now, the way you see your parents behave, the way you see your teachers behave or counsel you or guide you, that has a very big impact on the behavior or thought process of the child. But even then, if there is an identical twin, two identical twins, and they have the same childhood, same home, same school, same class, everything same, even then the behavior would be unique. Even then they would not have the same behavior or thought process. It's so interesting. In school setting, teachers and support staff actively facilitated behavior change through counseling sessions. Different environments and value systems produce different behaviors. This is the foundation for tailoring counseling to the individual's context. Now, some fundamental skills in counseling. The first skill is to adapt and adjust. You look at this picture. What is this? This is a number 6. When you look at this number from this end, it looks like 6. But when you look at it from the other end, it looks like 9. What does that mean? It means from what perspective we are looking at a situation, it depends on that. Okay? Adapt and adjust says that we need to meet the client where they are. We need to be in the shoes of the client and see the situation as they are viewing it. Okay? Not draw our conclusions, not let our personal biases come in between. We need to be empathetic and see where they are coming from, and we need to understand that. Give them the area to open up, the safe space to open up and say whatever they want to say, and we need to understand. That is the first part. Then in counseling, we also change perspective. Like I gave you the example of the boy, and I told you how we can reframe the perspective of that boy and make him look at his father not as a father, not just as a father, but as a middle-aged man who does a 9 to 5 job, comes back late to his home and handles all kind of stresses. Now that what is that doing? It's a very powerful situation. It's a very powerful tool that is reframing or changing the perspective of the person. Then we learn new skills, build the capacity by acquiring skills needed to face the situation. We talked about life situation, how counseling is not dealing with problems. We don't use the word problem, we say life situation. Now, when you deal with life situation, you develop life skills. That is what we do in counseling. We teach or make them develop life skills. We cope and accept. We learn to accept what cannot be changed and function well despite it. This is exactly the serenity prayer where you say, God, give me the strength to change what is in my control and the wisdom to decide, to differentiate between what is in my control and what is not in my control. So that is exactly this, that you accept whatever situation you are in, but you have the wisdom to identify what you can change and what is in your control and work according to it. All 4 skills are practiced in a space where the person does not feel threatened. Safety is the prerequisite for genuine change. A person can choose to change only when he feels safe, he or she feels safe. We would discuss all of it as we proceed. Counseling in educational settings. Areas where counseling applies: academic, social, emotional, career. Now this we are talking about in a school setting. Now in academic, there can be different learning difficulties like study habits, academic pressure, then things like dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. A teacher needs to be equipped to handle those and to be able to identify those difficulties and refer that child to a counselor. Then social, look at this. From the word normal, the word norms is coming. Okay, it's not exactly like that. I'm just giving you an example. So if someone is not behaving in the way everyone else is behaving, then we say that that person is not normal. Why? Because he or she is not behaving according to the norms of the society. So that person has a high chance of being bullied in school, in college. So peer relationships, rumor spreading, just a moment, excessive dependence, name calling, bullying, all these are different things that a child faces. I get reminded of that case of Arve. He was a boy, a very bright young boy who used to study in a school in Delhi. His mother was a teacher, and he loved nail painting and some of the things which are seen as feminine. Now he was bullied so much by his students, by his friends, by the other students, by his seniors, and he even reached out for help, but he did not, unfortunately he did not get the help he desired, and he took his life. You must have heard of that case. It's very important for teachers to be equipped to handle these situations. Now, emotional, processing feelings, emotional regulation, empathy. Now, these are some things that counseling does. Career, early exploration, strengths identification, future planning, so that the child is well equipped to get into the career he has interest in and aptitude in. Context and approach. Focus on early intervention. Catch issues before they escalate. Emphasis on precaution and prevention. Build life skills that help as adolescents navigate life. When a counselor helps someone understand their situation, the person gains the strength to handle it. We discussed this. Counselors in educational settings are catalysts for change. They do not solve, they enable. Now the last part, key reflective examples. Now I gave you an assessment where you need to write the miracles that you see in your life. I gave you some examples here of miracles. These are real world stories that are going to help you gain a perspective. Now in the first one, it's an adult who has been diagnosed with ADHD in their adult phase recently. Now he says that I'm able to connect the dots, that why I used to have restlessness, overthinking, impulsive behavior, going into depth, making extensive notes, getting lost in the details, and the concept of hyperfocus. I can interconnect all of it now that I am diagnosed with ADHD. And this self-realization and understanding one's own mind is a personal example of self-awareness and miracle. It's a miracle for that person. Then in the second one, this is the example of a person who ran away from home even after being a state topper in an exam, in a very difficult exam, and after that being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and then today he's perfectly all right with a loving family. It's a reminder that people can recover and thrive, and that we can recognize miracles in ordinary lives around us. In the third one, this is the example of a person who is saying that the connection that the person has with God. Whenever that person has a question, he keeps it in his mind, and the answers come either in a thought or through someone's words or something that he reads. Like he has a question, he asks that to God, and he always gets the answer in some or the other way. Something happens, or he reads something, or someone says something to him, or he has a self-realization, some thought comes to his mind. This is an example of trust, hope, and openness in one's own journey. This is also a miracle for that person. So I gave you 3 examples, and I want you to recognize miracles in your own life or around you in others' lives. And remember that counseling gives hope and optimism. Recognizing miracles, big and small, in one's own life is a core reflective principle, core reflective practice. That's it for today. If you want the PDF, I'll put a number in the description. You can WhatsApp me there and I'll share the PDF with you. Thank you so much for watching the first class. I hope you liked it, and we would learn a lot of things. I'm learning a lot of things, and I'm so happy to share it on a platform, and we would learn a lot of things in this course as we proceed. And let us help each other grow. So, goodbye. Let's meet in the next class.